I felt so empowered because today was the day I was going to write the last strategy for my book, A Farewell to Welfare. Today was the day I was going to write the strategy of loving yourself first every day. So as I'm walking into my office, I can feel him rushing up behind me fast. But I didn't think anything of it. When I went to turn around, I noticed that he was coming at me forcefully. So I had tea in my hand. So I threw the tea at him to divert his attention. And when I threw the tea at him, I noticed that he ducked the tea and then he lunged at me. The next thing I know, I'm in the corner in my office in the fetal position, balled up. One hand is around my throat, the other hand is just punching me. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, what the heck is going on? How did this situation turn around so fast? And I just began to plead the blood. I said, no, this can't be real. When I woke up, I had my living room and my home filled with EMT and police officers. They were examining me. Elise, come on, you got to get out of here. These were the same police officers who came to my house after every domestic dispute. The male officer insisted that I get a medical treatment because of my bruises. The female officer looked at me like she was upset with me, like she was mad at me, like I had done something wrong. But I looked at the time, and I knew I had to pick my children up from school in the next 2 hours, so I declined medical treatment. I said, no, thank you, and I went right back into my office writing. I didn't have time to be a victim. I didn't have time to be hurt. I didn't have time to be in pain, because guess what? I had work to do. The reason why I knew I was with the wrong man, what made the decision that day to leave him, even though I made this decision a million times before this day, I was working with a coach, and I was explaining to her something that he was doing to me, and she said, Elise, this is not the first type of relationship you had like this. Why is it that you keep attracting the same type of controlling, negative men into your life? And I had me think, why is it? According to the National Institute of Domestic Violence, every minute, at least 20 people in this country are being abused by an intimate partner. How did I, Elise Wiggins, get myself into this situation? So let me take you on my journey. And on my journey, I want to tell you what I learned about myself. And there's 3 things. Number 1, pain. We live in a society today where everyone is trying to not feel pain. We want to anesthetize it with drugs, sex, alcohol, toxic relationships, you name it. But what I had to realize was that I had to sit in the pain. When he was hitting me, I didn't even fight back. And if you know me personally, you know that I'm a fighter. I just sat and I gave up. I surrendered because I said, you need to feel this. This is something that you have to grow through in order to get over it. So in pain, we grow. In pain, we develop. But if we skip the pain process, we skip a part of us. And sometimes in trying to get rid of the pain, what we're doing is we're actually making our situation worse than it already is. We also extend the amount of pain we endure, and also it becomes more problems. Let me give you an example. When I was giving birth to my daughter, my first child, I was in labor for 3 days. And I said, listen, as soon as I got to the hospital, I said, give me the epidural now, I need it. This is just too much pain. I can't deal with it. By the time I gave birth to her, the epidural wore off, and I still felt all the pain. I had a day later to give birth to her after I took the pain. After I had my daughter, thank God she was born healthy, I was so weak. I was in so much pain. I had so much pain when I went to use the bathroom, when I went to move. So her grandmothers, both my mother and her father's mother, came and took care of my baby and me. Now, when I gave birth to my son, I had a midwife, so I didn't take any epidural. So this time when I gave birth to him, it was a whole bunch of pain. It hurt really, really bad. But after I gave birth to him, I wasn't in pain. So what that taught me is sometimes when you're hurting,
Sometimes when it's the thing that feels so bad and you don't want to feel it and you're destined to anesthetize it, sit in it. Why am I telling you to sit in it? My grandmother used to say to me, you got to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. And on that particular day, I was sick and tired of the verbal abuse. I was sick and tired of everything that was happening. And believe it or not, he had never put his hands on me before this day. So it came as a complete surprise. But maybe that's what I needed to happen in order for me to, number 2, accept personal responsibility. So first it was pain. I had to sit in the pain. I had to feel it. Because it helped me grow. It helped me become the Elease that you see today. So personal responsibility. Look at all of the choices I was making. Look at the things that I was doing. Those things that I was doing consequently got me into those situations. We're not where we are by accident. You're sitting here because you made the choice, because you made the decision. I was sitting curled up in the fetal position in my office because I chose to be with someone that I knew deep down wasn't good for me. But because I had pain from my childhood, but because I had pain from past relationships, I wanted to stay close to something that felt comfortable, even if it hurt me. But no more. I told myself, Elease, you have 2 children to think about. What would your children say if they saw you in a corner like this? How would this traumatize them? You have to break this negative cycle. So what did I start doing? I started making different choices about the people that I was bringing into my life and my children's lives. I started making different choices about my finances. So last year today, my children and I were homeless, and we were living in a New York City shelter. And people kept saying, well, you have your master's degree. You're educated. You wrote a book. How could that happen to you? And I had to think, personal responsibility. Elease, you wasn't managing your money properly. Elease, you should have been doing this. Elease, you should have been doing that. But guess what? All too often, again, we don't want to say, I did it. I was wrong. I messed up. Michael Jackson can tell you, I'm looking at the man in the mirror. You have to be tired of being tired, and you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, whatever your name is, I need to change this. And this is what I started to do. So this is what I'm saying. The pain helped me to accept my wrongdoing. The pain helped me to say, Elease, you need to switch this up. And then the last thing I want to say to you is the power of forgiveness. So I could blame my parents for the things that they didn't do, for the things that they did do, and the things that I wanted them to do. I could blame the men that I was involved with in relationships. Well, he hit me, and I'm the victim, and it's his fault. But ultimately, pain, personal responsibility. I chose this. And I could be mad at them and say, I'm not forgiving them. But what I realized is Elease had to forgive Elease. I couldn't, with all right, forgive anybody else if I haven't forgiven myself first. How would I be the woman and all of the titles that were mentioned before you when I was introduced if I didn't say, Elease, I forgive you for who you used to be. I forgive you for who you were. So when I see people who knew me back when, they'll say, didn't you used to? Weren't you? Yes, that's who I was. Operative word being was. You have to understand that any given moment, you have the opportunity to make a different decision. Any given moment, you have the opportunity to change your life. But that starts with you. So you might say to me, you might be sitting here saying, oh, Elease, that's impossible. I can't change. This is how I've always been. Guess what? If God could change Saul to Paul, he could change you into the person that you're supposed to be. So imagine if I was still that battered, beaten, broken woman in the corner. I wouldn't be affecting lives today. So what is it that I do ultimately? Because I knew that there were so many hurting people who did not have a voice, who did not have the education that I did. I said I had to have gone through all of these experiences for a reason. And what was that reason? So that I can be an advocate of change. So what did I do? I wrote my book. I go around the country and I speak to people and I encourage them. You know why? Someone encouraged me. Someone believed in me. Someone forgave me. So Elease Wiggins had to forgive Elease Wiggins. And this is what I want to say to you too. You have to know that no matter what you've been through, no matter how traumatic it has been, or what is it that you experience, forgive the person who hurt you. Forgive the people who hurt you. It's too much. It's too heavy. When people see me now, they say, oh my gosh, you look different, because there's a different spirit inside of me. I'm not mad with anyone. I don't feel bad about anything. I've forgiven everyone. Why? Because there's an opportunity to change. So when we look at what's going on in the world today, and everyone's waiting for somebody to do something. Oh, well, who's going to do this? And what's the next? No. Look in the mirror if you're waiting for someone. You're going to be the person who's going to make the change. You're going to be the person who's going to do what it is that you're supposed to do. So a lot of people say, Elease, you're so brave. Elease, you're so courageous. No, this is my calling. This is what I was called to do. It's a purpose. It's a responsibility. When I teach my classes, I teach sociology, psychology, and success here. And I'm teaching theoretical aspects. And I look into my classroom and I see one of my students with a tear going down their eye because we start talking about abuse or neglect. I'll have to stop the class and say, let's get a 5-minute pause. Could you step outside really quickly? Because guess what? As a professor, I had to realize I'm not educating robots. I'm educating human beings. And I'm not just teaching their brain. I'm changing their hearts. I'm teaching the next leader of the next generation, of leaders. I'm teaching people who are going to go out into the world and be courageous enough to make a change. And maybe the change starts with me. Maybe the change starts with you. But this is what I want to tell you. If you take pain and you accept it, you've identified it, you sat in it too long, and you get up one day and you say, you know what, enough is enough, this is it. You accept personal responsibility for your actions. You accept personal responsibility for the things that you've done. And then you say, you know what, I forgive everyone who hurt me, but most importantly, I forgive myself. Guess what? It's a strategy that I created. That's when you learn to grow through it. Not go through it. You grow through it. So just like a flower needs water, sunlight, air, oxygen, dirt. What's in the dirt? Fertilizer. I tell my students all the time, what's another word for fertilizer? Sugar, honey, iced tea. Sometimes you have to grow through the nastiest, dirtiest things. They have to happen to you in order to push you to where you are supposed to be. So in closing, this is what I want to say to you. If you're waiting for someone to change the laws, if you're waiting for someone to change economic regulations, if you're waiting for someone to change the social ills in the world, why wait for a leader when you can become one? God bless.